coming today. Since we've had some lessening of the sanctions with the interim agreement with Iran, people talk about them being easily reversible. I'm not really so concerned about the technical aspect of being easily reversible, but I am concerned about whether or not the reconstitution of an international coalition, which I think the sanctions, I think everyone would agree, aren't as successful if it's just us. I'm interested in the panel's opinion on whether or not we've gone beyond getting everybody back together. Is there going to be the ability, if there is no deal or if there is the sense that Iran is evading even the interim deal, to reconstitute an international coalition to make sanctions effective? Where do you think we are in that spectrum of being able to reconstitute that?
I think the ability to sustain this is much greater when you can point to Iran's bad behaviors. So if in the end they're not responsive, and there's been clearly a serious effort to try to offer them something and they're not responsive, it becomes much easier to sustain this with the kind of collective enforcement that we're seeing.
Senator, I would just add to that, when you look at the task before us of trying to figure out, is bad behavior going to occur in terms of illegal proliferation, illegal actions on the part of the threat network that they've got in the region, one of the things that we haven't done a good enough job, I think, of in the U.S. government is actually defining what a comprehensive verification and compliance regime needs to look like. It's not that easy simply to say that we are going to crack down on Iran. There's a lot of things that we don't do very well. There's a lot of risks that we're unwilling to take. There's a lot of liaison relationships out there with allied countries, by the way, that don't have the resources they need, that don't have the support they need, and don't have the transparency from us, including Israel. I would say Ambassador Ross made a comment earlier about the need for us to have actually a common understanding with regard to Israel as to what is it going to look like when we jointly try to pursue efforts to figure out if the Iranians are cheating or not. Half the time, we don't know what the Israelis are doing. They don't know what we're doing. There has to be better dialogue and transparency on sensitive regional and global issues if you're going to be serious about trying to figure out if they're cheating or not.
Senator, if the question is, can we reconstitute the regime exactly as it was and continue to strengthen it in the way that we had been doing it, I'm not sure. We certainly have the problems with Russia that we have. We have problems with China that we have. So I'm not sure we're going to be able to continue to do that. However, I think that Scott has pointed out quite rightly that as long as we can keep the current resolutions in place and the current agreements in force, and I think that is a perfectly feasible undertaking, we have the ability to improve our own prosecution of the sanctions in a way that can bring additional pain on Iran.
One quick follow-up. All of you feel like that nobody is evading beyond or lessening the sanctions beyond what we sort of agreed to lessen them to. Russia and China and others, they're still adhering to the previous set of sanctions that supposedly are in place?
No.
Okay. You do think they are?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, I'm certain that they are, and the Iranians are evading the sanctions in a variety of ways, including through Iraq, as I said.
And then the other point I'd like to make, and I think this is an important one because, you know, I try to think about these as if, you know, what a soldier thinks about our soldier, you know, that you might send back into Iraq, which I'm not very excited about. We released 3 Moroccans from Gitmo a while back under the previous administration. They went home for a while and then they decided to go fight in Syria. They're fighting on the same side as we are in Syria. So people who hate America are on our side, which concerns me a bit and confuses me a bit. We're supporting a Sunni sort of movement. It has people we say we're not going to give weapons to, but we did give some to a military council that said recently they're going for the Golan Heights when they're done with Assad. That's confusing to me to be on the same side as people who are going to try to reclaim the Golan Heights. It's a Sunni resistance. It also has parts of ISIS in it, but now we are sort of supportive of ISIS, not really, but we're on the same side as ISIS in a one battle, and we'll be in the other. So you tell a GI who's going to carry a gun and put his life down, and I know a guy from my neighboring town lost both legs and an arm, and he fought for freedom. He fought for a Bill of Rights. He fought for a Constitution. But you can see how it might be confusing when you send a soldier back in there that you say, well, Iran supports Hezbollah and the Alawites and the Shiites, but Iran also likes Maliki and the Shiites in there. So, I mean, you can see how it's very confusing. We're on both sides of 2 different wars. To be at war and to kill people and to fight and to lay down your life, it's hard for me to be certain that I'm excited to go. I mean, I hate that Mosul is falling, and I hate that those are falling, But I also think we for 10 years, we've supplied the Iraqis. They can't stand up and do anything to defend their country, and it is all up to us. It's hard for me, and I think it's easy from a geopolitical point of view. All the things you say are rational and logical, but I see this also emotionally from a GI who has to go over there and potentially lose his life, an American. Then I'm concerned that it's confusing. Which side are we on? We're for the Sunnis in one war, and we're against the same set of Sunnis in another war in a neighboring place. It's all destabilizing, but you could even go back 10 years and say, you know what? It might have been a little more stable when we had that awful guy Hussein who hated the Iranians. I mean, so I'm not saying that I'm for having Hussein there. I'm just saying that geopolitically, you had people somewhat at a standstill over there, and now you have a really confusing mess that makes it hard for me or for a GI to understand who he's shooting at and why. And he's shooting at one person in one war and a different person in another war, neighboring war.
Can I make just one quick response to that? Look, what you're saying is obviously a reality. But I think one way to think about it is that there are radical Shia militias who are armed, trained, funded by the Iranians. There's ISIS. These are extremist, radical Sunnis. Both are our enemies. Both hate us. Both threaten us. So the key is to identify who are our natural partners, who are contending with both, and how do we support them. We have to be able to discriminate enough, and then we have to be able to figure out how to do that.
But would you agree it's hard to sort of decide who are our friends sometimes who aren't? We have given anti-tank weapons to a group in Syria that 2 weeks ago said that they will attack Israel. And we've already given them weapons. We let 3 people go from Gitmo who are fighting on the same side of the war. It is confusing, and there are radical elements of all this, but they've hated each other for thousands of years, and they're probably going to hate each other for another 1,000 years and fight each other. And I'm not really saying don't be involved. I'm saying try to help in some way, but really think seriously before we say, oh, it's real easy. We have the might. We do. We could go in and we could do it, but are you willing to let 4,000 more soldiers die in Iraq, Americans, to bring back Mosul? I think it's terrible what's happening, but the Iraqis need to step up and defend their country. And I just don't know if I'm ready to send 4,000 soldiers in. I'm also disturbed that we still have it on the books that the president, while you say he's unlikely, which I agree, it's still on the books that he could send. We could go to war tomorrow with no vote of Congress. This is very, very tragic. And at the very least, even if everybody else disagrees with me and they want to go to war in Iraq again, we should vote on it. For goodness sakes, we shouldn't have permanent war that you can just go to war anytime you want. That's the way it exists right now. I'm very troubled by that. And this isn't really clear cut exactly who we're for, who we're against, who we're shooting, and we're shooting the same people and different people in different wars. It is quite confusing, I think. And for someone who's going to lay down their life, it needs to be a much more, I think, clear cut who is our enemy.
Senator.